It's around this point that I realized that the decaling process was maybe not going to be as smooth as I thought it was going to be. So it's really going to be another episode next week too. It's interesting in that for the amount of time it's taken me to build this model, which admittedly is longer than I would have liked, really the biggest thing that makes the difference on the completion of the model and how good it is the combination of paint and decals. Getting either of these wrong essentially makes or breaks, well, if I get it wrong, it breaks the model as a whole. So, even though there's only a few decals on the B-17, getting it right is imperative. On this aircraft, I used a custom set of decals from Kit's World. Overall, I was quite happy with them. I did have some difficulty just due to their size, making sure there's no wrinkles in them, and getting them to lay flat. I'm applying these using a combination of microsol and microset. So in order, microset comes first. It's just kind of like a mild adhesive. It really helps to get the decal to stick down to the model. Then you come back with microsol, and it softens up the decal material and helps it conform into like panel gap mold lines, rivet detail, and other surface features that otherwise would cause either a raised area of the decal or kind of a crease underneath it or a void. Anything like that. So especially when you're applying to complex geometry, microsol is a lifesaver. I got pretty lucky with the L decal. The way it folded, I shouldn't have taken it off the paper like I did, and fortunately it came out okay. All of the decals really came out okay, with one exception being the tail number of the aircraft, which is underneath the horizontal stabilizer. It pretty much shredded as I tried to take it off the decal film, and that was an issue. The bigger issue, unfortunately, is this decal. I don't know what happened. I tried to reach out to the manufacturer but didn't get a response. I did not buy it through the manufacturer, but something happened in the printing of this decal that prevented the nose art emblem or the nose art coloring from being correct. So essentially it's almost as if they ran out of white mid-print. So her entire dress is missing. Fortunately for me, the Commemorative Air Force actually has their nose art online. So here you can see the missing dress. I didn't notice it at first when I went to apply the decal, and here's the correct nose art for reference. Throughout its life, Texas Raiders had a couple of different designs of nose art. This is the nose art that it has worn, well, that it did wear at the time of its accident and for years prior. And it is painted by Gary Velasco. I really liked this nose art, and since this is a commemorative build, this is the nose art that I was dead set on having. So I ended up making my own nose art, which was harder than I expected to a degree. I used the Texas printout from the original decals, so I essentially cut the right-hand side decal around the word Texas, specifically because of the way you have to design it. Because it's got a white layer to it, you need to print it on white decal film, because most printers do not print white. As a result, if I wanted to print out the word Texas, I would have had to individually cut out each letter and apply it as its own decal, which I was not very motivated to do. Instead, I left the Texas from the original decals and I printed out the remainder from a white set of decal film, and I thought it came out pretty well. So to get the sizing right, I scanned the original Kits World decal and I scaled the nose art off of it and reversed and edited and did some Photoshop work to get it to really sit properly. So overall, I'm very happy with the way it came out. There's room for some improvement. I think down the road I will likely probably source a printer that does print white ink, and that'll allow me in the future to print similar issues if I run across them on clear transfer paper or clear decal paper, which will make it a lot easier because then you can be more general with how you cut the decals out. It doesn't have to be exactly around the design, and it is a lot more tolerant. So you'll notice from certain angles that the Texas Raiders nose art does have a little bit of a white outline, and that's a result of I just didn't have the knife quite close enough to the actual artwork. It very much is a case of just trying to get it as close as possible without breaking the decal. A lot of people are going to shame me for using my fingers here. Go ahead. It doesn't bother me. It came out well, and I'm okay with it. So if it works, it works, right? This decal was interesting because I had to make sure that it lined up with the door glass on the aft cabin door for the B-17. And it worked. It fit perfectly. And once I got it aligned, it looks really good. It looks like it's perfectly meant to be here. This decal is a clear example of where microsole is a very good thing, because it allows you to bend it and contour it around that raised panel that's on the sides of the B-17. I've always wondered what those raised panels are. I have been unable to find the reason for them being there. I haven't found it at all, so if anybody knows, throw a comment in, please, because I would be fascinated to learn. Finishing up the model, we have propellers to put on. When you're doing white, or when you're doing yellow, always paint white first. It really helps the yellow to pop out. It helps even out the tone of the yellow, and it's just a good practice overall. So highly recommend that method for you if you're going to be painting yellow, like if you're doing a Blue Angels aircraft or some other yellow airplane. Adding additional weathering to propellers, and well, not really weathering, but more like erosion, is a nice way to bring out the details of an aircraft kit that is a propeller-driven aircraft. One of the ways you can do that is by doing some sponge chipping, which I'm doing here to the engine cowling. Do that to the leading edges of the propellers. Most of these propellers from this time frame are metal. They're aluminum blades. More recently, we are using composites for propeller blades, and therefore the chipping effect won't be too applicable for a modern day aircraft, thinking like a modern C-130 or like an A-400. But on the B-17, we're talking aluminum propeller blades, so some sponge chipping with a metallic aluminum color is going to help bring out some overall erosion damage from just like flying through storms where you're hitting raindrops continuously and basically just blasting the propeller with water, or sandy environments where you've got sand suspended in the air from dust storms and the like. You're going to end up with a little bit of abrasion on your leading edges of your propellers. So sponge chipping really does help to bring out a little bit more detail, a little bit more character to your propeller as a whole. The HKM kit's ball turret, I really like the way this ball turret goes together, as opposed to the Revell kit's ball turret, which I have built. I'm having difficulty painting. Overall, one of the biggest criticisms I have of myself painting this kit and building this kit is not buying like a set of masks and not spending enough time developing masks for the kit. I think with the amount of exposed glass that is on the B-17, you've got windows throughout the cockpit, the ball turret, the dorsal turret, all these different glass pieces that are painted. having a set of masks would really have benefited the kit overall in quality. I think it still came out well compared to my model build of 909, which was the Revell G model I did about 6 years ago. Texas Raiders is definitely a better paint job and definitely a higher quality finish overall. Here I didn't paint yellow because I'm not painting over black, so a base gray layer is just fine. Exterior colors where you're doing like a dark to white light transition, that's when you need the white. And here's my biggest point of frustration of my entire build. Yeah. So I've broken pretty much every single gun barrel on this entire model at some stage. And I swore up and down I was not going to break the ball turret's guns. And I put it together, I painted it, had no issues. And when I went to install it, I dropped it and snapped off both gun barrels. I was pretty furious. I had to put the kit down for at least a day, just take a break, and then come back. But it did fix it. It was just very frustrating. Doing the engine exhausts, I actually noticed a mistake here when I built the kit. And I noticed it thanks to the channel Mock Models, where he did the Bloody 100th B-17 that Edward and HKM came out with as a joint project. The exhaust is supposed to tuck underneath the engine cowlings, and I did not notice it when I built each wing and put the cowlings and the motors in. I was so focused on getting the motors in there without breaking anything that I just didn't notice that the exhausts have to tuck into the cowl. So I ended up having to cut off a little bit of the exhaust to get it to fit. It wasn't overall too big of an issue, but it was something that I should have paid a bit more attention to, and I think is a weakness that I'll try and fix in future. Unmasking the kit windows finally. Love the way the cockpit came out. The priming around the glass pieces, I don't think I'd do that again. I think I would go more fuselage color, and that's just because I think it stands out a little bit too much, and it's a little too thick compared to like what the actual aircraft would be, and that's purely an interface issue with like building a model plastic kit, because the recesses do have a step to allow you to glue things, and it just is a little bit disproportional. So I think in the future I wouldn't do that primer around the window. I would do just a regular fuselage color. Another mistake that I am critiquing myself on here is it would have been better for me to put the glass on for some of the painted windows, thinking the dorsal turret and thinking the Cheyenne Turret's glass. Would have been better for me to have that on and masked up for the overall paint of the fuselage. So that's a lesson I'm taking from this as well. I did manage to mix up close to the correct color, but I had the ratio slightly off, so there's a very minor coloring difference between the fuselage and the dorsal and the Cheyenne turret. Mostly the Cheyenne turret's glass, I didn't like the way it came out because it's very thin, flimsy plastic, and you have to do a lot of trimming to get it to fit. And personally, it just frustrates me because you're paying for the aftermarket part. I would personally want it to be kind of a plug-and-play fit, and it very much isn't. You have to do a lot of trimming to it. That being said, it is a very cool mod. So finally, here is the almost finished aircraft. The antenna wire I did add later because I did not have the correct product that I wanted to use, and it didn't arrive on time. So I did 3D print a base for it. I did hide some circuitry in the base to allow me to have an on-off switch and a power jack. I posted more of that on my Instagram. I wasn't going to cover it for this model build. It's just a very simple 3D printed, supposed to look like pads of concrete, and the model is glued to it. It also has a wiring pass-through for the right-hand main landing gear's power supply, and that's what drives the whole electrical part of the airplane model. Overall, very satisfied with the way this came out. I think it looks incredible, especially compared to my other B-17 build that I did a number of years ago. And having the engines turn is just, it's honestly so satisfying to watch it do the engine startup with all 4 engines. So I'm pretty over the moon, honestly. At this point, I'll leave you. Thank you for tuning into the HKM build. I will be continuing with the Revell build here in the next couple weeks after I do my total summary episode for the full HKM Texas Raiders build, and we'll go from there. For now, just enjoy the last shots of the model and consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Catch you guys in the next one.